It's a blessed Sunday today as we have been preparing for this important conversation, important show to look at a number of topics that challenge us all. So how I got started on this program was back in 2007, actually 2003, 4. That's when I was introduced to this study, and I have dedicated most of my time doing research, trying to understand a little bit more. Hello, my name is Noah Ndlovu. I have a background in history, science, and religion. And in this conversation, we will be looking at matters of origin. When we talk about matters of origin, what do we mean? We are talking about how did life begin? There are two competing paradigms, two competing theories that talk about the matters of origin. So today we are going to explore and give sides of what this theory says and what the other theory says. So before we go any further, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I got started and why we are talking about what we're talking about today. So growing up in Zambia, this is Southern Africa. For those who may not be familiar with that, Zambia is a landlocked country in Southern Africa. I grew up under a Christian themed country where religion and Christianity is sort of the norm. And predominantly, Zambia has a large Christian following. So that is the background under which I grew up. But when I went to school, I discovered that what they teach in school is different from what is taught in church. So now it leads one to wonder, how come when you go to church, you are told that God created the heavens and the earth? And when you go to school on a Monday, you are told that life began in the sea through either the Big Bang Theory or a process called evolution. So the question becomes, which is which? Because truth can only be one. There are what I call the rules of logic, and the logic says that truth can only be one. You cannot have competing ideas, one going this way and the other one going that way, be talking about the truth. Of course, I'm aware that the world is round, but two competing paradigms are totally different. So we're going to be looking at those in this series. So this is going to be a presentation of 20 lectures, which are going to give both sides of this of the coin, or both sides of the paradigm, ample coverage. So we're going to look at religion. So when we look at religion, for the most part, we will be looking at all the religions of the world. So I know for most people, when you talk about religion, what they think is religion is Christianity. Of course, Christianity is one piece of religions. There are different types of religions. For instance, there is what is called Baha, there is Buddhism, there is Hinduism, there is Shinto, there is Zoroaster, and of course, everybody knows about Judaism, which is different from Christianity. Christianity is one spectrum, and just like the Catholicism is also another spectrum. So you have competing views about religion. And on the other side, there is one process. It's called evolution by means of natural selection. So what is evolution? What is natural selection? And what is the Big Bang? Because these are competing theories that talk about the origins of life. So before we go any further, we're gonna put up a guide to help our conversation. So in the sphere of religion, stay firm in the things that you believe in. You have to stay firm in the things that you believe in. If concerns arise, don't question the things that you believe in. Doubt your doubts. I just want that to sink in for a few minutes. If concerns arise, then doubt your doubts and continue to believe what you believe. So it's important for us to define some terms. So we're going to look at what is faith, what is belief, what is religion, what is evolution, and does God exist? How can you know if God exists? So these are some of just a few questions that we'll be exploring in this lecture, in this series. So I want you to sit back and relax, and we're going to be, I encourage you to get a pen or pencil and piece of paper. Just take down notes, because I'm going to be saying a lot of things that most people may not be familiar with. And when you hear me say something that you're not familiar with, you cannot accuse me of being wrong, because how can you say something about something that you don't know? The only way you can say something about something is if you know. So therefore, if you don't know, you cannot argue with someone. So this is where you exercise what is called intellectual vigilance. Take notes, check it out. We live at a time where we have access to internet and technology. I think one of the greatest marvel for the last 20 years has been the internet. And you have YouTube, the platform through which I am delivering this presentation. Before 20 years ago, I think some of these platforms were not readily available, or if they were there, it was in a very small scale. But one of the things that I am particularly pleased and excited and happy about is the fact that we have a platform like this that makes communication, dispensation of information easy. So we are living at a time where most people will say this is a information age. So sit back, relax, and drink some water or sip some juice or whatever makes you comfortable as we get started on this important conversation. Yes, my name, like I said, is Noah Ndelovu, and I will be presenting in this series. I'm gonna, from time to time, I may have a guest to help me break down some of these important topics that we're gonna be looking at, but for the most part, it's just going to be me. So I got involved, started in this approach way back in 2007. In 2007, I was exposed to this material back in 2003 and 4 from a friend. And from the time that she exposed me to this material, I became obsessed. I was reading, I was doing all kinds of research just to learn and understand this material more, because I believe this is the most important conversation that you can ever have with a friend. Because when you look at the earth, or when you look at the world, when you look at the ethers or the cosmos, it's very complex. It's a very complex world in which we live. So there are people who look at the world and say, what a beautiful design. And there are people who look at the world and say, wow, look at what nature was able to do. So you could look at one thing and come to completely polar opposites. Now the question becomes, the lenses through which you view the world influence the type of conclusions and the type of personality that you're going to manifest or you're going to exhibit. Because one theory talks about evolution, So evolution, let's start by defining what evolution is. So this is, if you do a quick Google search on the internet, you come up with this definition. What is evolution? Evolution is a process of biological change by which species of organism change over time. So it's true, species and organisms change over time. The question becomes, what are species? Species is a different type of life form. So when you look at the human race, people may say it's a species of life form, but others will argue on the other side of the coin, there's what is called a kind. So we're gonna define what a kind is. I'll do my best to define what a kind is and what a species is. Because like I say, when you go back to looking at the world, we are all looking at the world, but we're coming to totally different conclusions of how the world came into existence. The world is a very complex, uh, I don't know if I can call it a system. The argument that most people have is, how did everything come into existence? So this is a question that we're going to be exploring at length, and to look at it from different angles, and to chase every rabbit trail to search for answers. I believe that in order for one to have an informed decision about anything, you have to do your research, you have to do your own digging. You have to roll up your sleeves and go into the depths and search for yourself to see where your research is going to take you. And it's important for people to understand that when you conduct your research in whatever field that you're in, it is important to follow the evidence. Follow the evidence wherever it may lead you. You may not like where the evidence is going to lead you, but it's important to follow the evidence. In the scientific community, there is what is called the scientific method. Scientific method is an approach to know, is an approach to find out how things came into existence. So there are different frames of thought that are put out there of how life may have begun, but we're going to explore some of these and try to come up with solutions and answers to what we see is the solution, or what we see is the answer to the puzzle. So there's a little clip that I want us to just focus on before we go any further. Let's just try to look at this clip, and we'll be right back in a few seconds. Does God exist? What is evolution? What is natural selection? How did we get to where we are? So this, in this episode, we presentation, we will just give an overview of what we'll be discussing, what we'll be talking about in the coming weeks and months. So sit back and relax, and let's get started with our conversation. I know most of you have thought about this question, these questions: does God exist? Where is God? How do I know? And things like that. But I think our upbringing tends to dictate, for the most part, how we respond to this question. So I found this on the internet. It's by Brother Ray. Brother Ray is a former a preacher who has who preached, or who was in the church for the past for over 25 years. and he came to his own conclusion. And this is one of the definitions that he put out there. Ignorance and fear are the two pillars of all religion. Ignorance and fear are the two pillars. The uncertainty pertaining to a person's relationship with God is precisely the thing that attaches us to religion. When something is not clear enough, when something, it leaves you questioning, challenges your mind to have some obscurity, that is precisely what leads people to religion. Our minds have been programmed from childhood to fear God. We would think that there is something wrong with us if we had nothing to fear. I just want you to internalize that for a few seconds. Give you a few minutes just to read that. All right. So there are four great questions to life. How one answers these questions is influenced by the type of background or upbringing the child had. Because, like I said at the beginning of the show, I was brought up in a Christian household or in a Christian country where we, from an early age, we were told about the existence of a creator. So a person who's brought up in that type of environment, knowing and believing that there is a creator, and a person who was brought up in an environment where they have no idea that there is a creator, these two people, they will look at life, and how they will approach life is going to be different from they will both have different views, or what we call worldview. So worldview is a lens through which you view the world. You view the world based on what you were taught. So when you presented questions like this, who am I? What am I worth? So if you're looking from the Christian perspective, who you are a child of your creator, you are a child of God. Where did I come from? You came from your creator, if you believe in religion. Why am I here? You are here to save God. You are here to dominate the world. You are here to please God. And where am I going when I die? If you believe in religion, you are either going to heaven or you're going to hell. So how you answer these questions is influenced by your upbringing. Now, if you grew up in an environment where you had no idea that there is a God that existed, I was actually surprised when I first came to the United States that there were people who had no idea anything about God. I was shocked. Again, that confirms what I'm talking about, because where you grew up, it dictates what type of personality, what type of traits, what type of behavior is going to manifest in you. So a person who has never been exposed to religion by any stretch of imagination, they understand and look at life from very differently. So they will look at the four questions and they will answer them differently. For instance, who am I? So if you subscribe to the theory of evolution, who you are is nothing important, because you're just a piece of protoplasm that washed up on the beach. Because when you look at the theory of evolution, it talks about life began as a gigantic explosion billions and billions or millions of years ago. Now, just right there, that is outside science, because science is something that you can demonstrate, you can verify, you can redo. Because when you look at science, it means to know. So when you say it happened millions and millions of years ago, right there, that puts it outside of science, because science is something that is demonstrable. So the question number two, where did I come from? So if you do not subscribe to religion, you're going to say, I came from whatever you may think of. you say it could be maybe in my previous life I was maybe a tree, a cow, or whatever animal you can think of. I mean, because there's no way to know. Why am I here? I'm here. I might as well just do whatever I have to do, because I mean I'm master of my destiny and things like that. Where am I going when I die? Obviously, maybe a reincarnation, or I'll be reborn into something else, or I'll come back as another person, or maybe I'll just die. When I die, then that means it's the end of me. So the point I'm trying to stress here is that who you are and how you respond to the four questions of life is influenced by your background or your environment. If you are a Christian or you belong to a particular religious faith, you are going to believe that you are here because you were put here by your creator. But if you do not believe in that, you say, well, I'm here because I'm here. So if it feels good, you might as well jump with it. So I think we're seeing this in the world where people feel they are masters of their destiny. They can do whatever they want because they are not accountable. The key word is accountable. Because if you subscribe to the Christian faith, then you will be held accountable. If you subscribe to the Islamic faith, you are held accountable by Allah. Or if it's a Christian faith, you are held accountable by God. And if it's the Jewish faith, then it's either Jehovah or it's Yahweh. So we're not going to get into those discussion which God is true and things like that. My emphasis here is to point out that there is the existence of these things. Now, it is your responsibility as a human being to follow through and figure out which one makes sense. For instance, when somebody has been caught committing a crime, they do not just straight away send them to hell. Sorry, they do not send them straight away to jail. There's a process that they follow. Try to figure out what happened, how it happened, and things like that. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. So this is Reli-Volution. So Reli-Volution is religion and evolution. So we'll be exploring what religion says and what evolution says. Because back in 1851, there was a book that came out by a very popular guy that you may have heard of his name. His name was Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin in 1859 wrote a book called The Origin of Species. That is an abbreviated title. Most people may have never seen the book or have never read the book. I encourage you to read the books, because that's how you know stuff. Because when you are locked up in one sphere of knowledge, that leaves you sort of like what's the word? It's like you're not fully taking advantage of what is out there in the world. So there's a great man that I like. He usually starts out his presentation and talks about something like, you make a circle like this. Obviously, this doesn't look like a circle, but picture it's a circle. So I, as Noah, everything that I know can be represented in this circle. So all the things that I've known from the time I was born to the time right now is represented in this space or this realm. I must keep in mind that there is more to know than what I know. So I cannot say what I know represents everything that there is out there to know. I must keep in mind that there is more to know than what is represented in the circle or circumference of my awareness. What does that mean? So what I know right now, or should I say at this level of my development, the information that I've been exposed to leads me to make certain conclusion. But I must keep in mind that there is more information out there in this world that I have not come into contact with. So it is always important as a learned person to exercise what is called intellectual vigilance. When you hear something that you do not know about whatever, about a different topic. For instance, I usually give an example of someone comes to you and says, hey, my name is Catherine. If you're meeting that person for the first time, you're going to take them at their face value because they say they're Catherine, and you do not have prior knowledge of that information about that person. Therefore, you believe them for what they say. But if somebody who is popular like Donald Trump comes to you and tells you their name is Joe Biden, you say, no, no, you are not Joe Biden, you are Donald Trump. Or somebody like Mike Tyson, the Iron Mike Tyson comes to you and says, hey, my name is Steph Curry. You say, no, 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 that's not you. We know you, you are Iron Mike Tyson. Or the third example is somebody like Michael Jordan comes to you and says, hey, my name is Nelson Mandela. So, no, 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 you are MJ, Michael Jordan. Mandela is somebody else. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is when you know something about someone, you can challenge that. Because at the back of your mind, there is what is called reticular activating system. It records information about things that happen in the environment that you're exposed to. So, for instance, you are able to counter when Michael Jackson or Mike Tyson or comes you an imprint, or you have a memory that has been decoded in your brain about that person. But a person whom you don't know, they come to you and they tell you, my name is Catherine, you take them at their face value. So it's the same thing when you are looking at learning something. If information is presented to you at face value, at the first time, you receive it and it's recorded in your brain. So most of us, we have been taught a different type of story about matters of origin. And when somebody comes to you and tells you about evolution, or somebody comes to you, if you're a Christian, and tells you about the Bhagavad Gita, which is a sacred text for the Hindu, and just like the Bible is a sacred text for Christianity, somebody comes to you and tells you about those things because you already have your pre-loaded information in your psychovisceral or the reticular activating system. You are going to challenge that information. But what I'm encouraging you as viewers, as listeners around there, to exercise what is called intellectual vigilance. And when information that you have never heard of is presented to you, you have to do your due diligence to write it down and go and verify. Like I say, we live in a space which is called the information space, where you have access to the internet. You have access to Google. You can Google some information and then you can check it out. So what we see today as the background of what we believe in, most of these things were formulated back then. So when you look at the Ecumenical Council, this is a branch of the Catholic Church. They have convened several times in the past to come up with the various doctrines that we believe in, and that still stands as the foundation for everything that you know. So these councils were legally convened assemblies of the ecclesiastical dignitaries and the theological experts. These experts from the Catholic Church are responsible for everything, for regulating matters of the church doctrine and discipline. So for there has been over 20 councils that have convened and reconvened from 325 AD to 1870 AD. So that's a very, very long time ago. So the 325 Council, which convened at Nicene, or some people refer to it as the Council of Nicene of 325. Now, what was discussed there? What was discussed there has been the foundation of everything that most of us believe in and most of us know. But when you ask an average person, what do you know what happened in 325 AD? The average person has no idea. So when we present information from academia, from the space of historical literature, so there is what is called biblical literature, and there's what is called religious literature or religious text, and there is what is called academic papers. So there is no person who writes an academic paper on the existence of God. You can write an academic paper on evolution, but all universities, all colleges, all schools around the world, they teach the process of evolution. But when you show up like it's Sunday, like today, the preacher stands behind the pulpit and says that God created the heavens and the earth. The following day, you go to school, you are told life began in the sea. There is an acronym called FAM, fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal. So according to the theory of evolution, it states that we started out as a fish. So at one point in your lifetime, a long, long time ago, your ancestors were fish. So in other words, they lived in water. Amphibian is an animal which can both live in the sea, in water, and then on land. So you started out as a fish, you changed into an amphibian, both water and land, and then now you move to a reptile. At some point in your lifetime, you used to have scales. That is the theory of evolution. I'm simply putting out what is out there. And at some point, you became a mammal. So right now, you are a mammal. So memorize the acronym FAM: fish, amphibian, reptile, and mammal. So what am I trying to do in this presentation? So in this presentation, I am giving you the two sides, or the two paradigms. I am not telling you which side you have to subscribe to or which side you don't have to subscribe to. You have to make up your own mind. My goal is just to present this information. So just like in a court case, before you can decide a case, you have to gather your facts, gather your evidence. So there's a difference when you look at evidence, when you are looking at sciences, you look at evidence. Now, when you look at pure mathematics, like symbolic philosophy or math, when somebody asks you 1 + 1, you don't need evidence for that question. You need proof. So in mathematics, you deal with proof. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 is the proof that 1 and 1 equals to 2. So when you look at 5 × 5 is 25. So that is your proof. It's not your evidence. Now, when you are looking at historical sciences or an historical approach to wanting to find out about something, you look at the evidence, the likelihood of something happening. What is the likelihood that there was a Big Bang? You do not necessarily look for proof. You look for evidence. So when you're digging up as an archaeologist like Dr. Jones in the movies that we've seen, he goes out there, he's digging up for some artifacts. He is not digging up for proof. He is digging up for evidence. So when we are looking at trying to piece the puzzle of the origins, we were not there. So in science, you can only do something that you can demonstrate. Now, to demonstrate, it simply means that you can prove. For instance, we just had COVID-19, or basically still hanging around. So there are pharmaceutical companies that did the research. They mix up the chemicals, the drugs, and then they're able to pass on. Usually they have a patent on those medication. So if Pfizer comes up with a vaccine for a particular disease, there is a formula that they use, which is under the scientific method, because you can ask a different pharmaceutical company to do the same experiment and come up with that. Now, when you look at the origins of the world, the earth that we live in, we cannot say we can do an experiment, a scientific approach to reproduce that. So we have to look at what is the likelihood of the evidence being there to support what the Big Bang says. So as well, I'm concluding, because this is going to be a very at length detailed lecture where we zoom in directly to find out a little bit more about what these matters pertain to and how they sort of influence your life. Like I say, your environment in which you live influences what you believe. For instance, if some of us who grew up in Africa, because the Europeans, when they went out there, they colonized and they brought in Christianity. Let it sink in for a minute. The Europeans came to Africa and brought with them Christianity. Prior to the arrival of the Europeans, there was no Christianity in Africa. You are a Christian today as a result of the Europeans coming to Africa. But prior to the arrival of the Europeans, Africans practiced indigenous spiritual systems. And I'm just trying to set the stage here. When you hear the word voodoo, most of you want to run through the window, run through the door, because you have been programmed to believe that voodoo is bad for you. When you talk about Christianity, oh, now you're talking. Islam, oh, no. Buddhism, oh, no. Christianity, oh, good. Now, I want you to take a few seconds and think, how come you are very receptive to Christianity, but not to Islam, or not to Buddhism, or not to Hinduism? It's because the environment in which you live dictates that. If I were born in the Middle East, by default, I would have been a Muslim. If I was born in India, Buddhism started out in India and then it spread to the East in China and Japan. So there's Hinduism in India. So most Indians, by default, they are either Hindu or Buddhism by default. Why? It's because of the environment. When you look at the parts of Zambia, southern province, the missionaries, when they came in, the Seventh-day Adventists, they settled there. So most people by default, if you're Tonga or if you're southern province, chances are you subscribe to the Adventist church. Some of us from the Eastern province, Dutch Reformed Church. Why? It's because those chaps, when they came in, they settled there. So my point here is the environment in which you live. It has nothing to do with you thinking intellectually. It's the environment dictates what you subscribe to. So most people always feel like I'm making my own decision. Chances are you're not making your own decision. The decision was made for you. So in this series, that just gives you a taste of what we'll be talking about in the direction which we'll be going. I just wanted just to make this video to introduce this important topic conversation that we'll be embarking on. It's going to be a series of 20 lectures. We're going to present the side of evolution, and we're going to present the side of religion. So I am not preferring one over the other. My goal is to empower you with the necessary information that you do not readily find available out there. This information is as a product of doing research. When you do research like I have done, which you can do, you'll find out there's more information out there than what you know. So in order for you to become a well-seasoned person, you cannot use the Bible and discount everything else. First of all, how are you deciding in the first place that, oh, the Bible is right? You say, oh, the Bible is right because the Bible says so. The Bible is right because the Bible says so. And a Muslim will come in and say, the Quran is right because the Quran says so. How do you know that the Quran is right? Because Allah says so. So that is called secular reasoning. So in order for you to be well informed about these matters, you have to step outside of religion. The Bible makes reference to a book of Jasper. I know most people, you didn't know that. Yes, the Bible makes reference to a book of Jasper. The Bible makes claims which can be substantiated using science. Like in the book of Job, God asked Job some questions. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? The question was designed not for Job to answer, but to show him that the earth has got foundations. In 1979, there were springs. The earth sits on four corners. The idea that the world is round, the Bible talks about that. The Lord sits on the circle of the earth. So when you look at religion, for you to become a better Christian or a better Muslim or a better whichever religion, you have to step outside of what you know. You cannot use the Bible to justify the Bible, because that's, if you have a Christian and you have a Muslim and you put them together, they will each copy and quote from their scripture, and you can never get anything done. Never get anything done. So we go back to this, the councils, 20 of them from 325, they have been responsible for what we see today. So I just wanted to set the stage for what we'll be discussing. We're going to be discussing different conversation here. So I want you to exercise intellectual vigilance, and we'll define what religion is. We'll define what Christianity is, and we'll be able to take it from there. So again, I just wanted to put up those 4 pillars there to show you that how you answer those questions is influenced by what you have been taught. If you are a Christian today, chances are that the Europeans came and Christianized your ancestors. So hopefully we get the idea, we get the direction of this channel. This channel is designed to bring you information. So from time to time, I'm going to say something that you don't know. I just want to set you up ahead of time. I will say things that you don't know. And back to that Michael Jordan example, you cannot challenge what you don't know. You simply write it down and do your research and come back to me. You'll see that the great philosopher has been right all along, because I have done the research. So I'm going to present some information that you don't know. So when I say something you don't know, it is at that time or that moment that you learn something. Because if I'm only saying things that you know, not only am I wasting my time, but I'm also wasting your time. So in order for me to teach you something as a teacher, as an educator, I have to say something you don't know so that you can learn something new. So hopefully we know the roadmap. We know the direction we are going. I just want to encourage you and challenge you that there is more to know than what you know. So I am going to present some information to help you be a better person, so that at least when you'll be able to have a conversation with a Muslim, you'll be able to have a conversation with people from different faith. You cannot lock yourself in that, no, what I know, I'm stuck to my Jesus. And Islam is going to say, I'm stuck to my Muhammad. No, there has to be a common ground. Review the evidence. Don't just make conclusion based on what you were taught. What you know right now, you were told by somebody, and then that person was told by somebody. You've never verified whether it's true or not. Everything that you have, you know right now, as I speak, you were told by somebody else. Everything that you know, you were told by somebody else. Chances are that you never verified that. Were you there when you were born? Just a thought. Did Adam had a belly button? Think about that, and we'll continue next week, next time, as we explore these conversations to help you be better informed. See you next week.